So Australians know your name pretty well. If they follow sprint car racing at all around the Knoxville Raceway, particularly in the 80s and into the 90s, John Sernett, when did you actually race? What years?
So started in 1974 and finished it up probably 2013, 2014.
Wow, so pretty well, like, yeah, 20 years. Probably 20, 30 years.
More like 50.
Shh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help a brother out here.
Okay.
50 years.
Yeah, 15 years, right.
Wow. Why? Why so long? You just couldn't get it out of your system?
I guess not. I kept thinking I was going to get to Formula One, joking, right?
Yep.
But so, you know, it's an addiction mostly, so I loved it.
And this place in particular, why is the Knoxville Raceway so special to so many people as a racer?
It's just so iconic, you know. Earl Wagner, the days of the 50s and 60s, even racing. It's just sprint car capital of the world. It's just iconic. Everybody knows Knoxville.
Do you remember the first lap you ever did here?
Not really. I was driving for Dick Valentine, a guy in Northwest Iowa. It was like the same year Sammy Swindell was here for the Nationals. Those were my first laps here, but I don't really remember it. It was a long time ago.
Do you remember how you felt?
Nervous.
I mean, you'd have to be, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
It's a big place. Skip Jackson always tells newcomers, don't turn at the flag stand.
Exactly, and Ray Lipsy and Wolfgang would advise me the same thing. You should hardly turn at all at the approach of the corner, you know, because the corners are so wide and sweeping that you don't make a hard turn like all the other tracks.
Now, there was a moment just over yonder in turn one there, where that big old flag is now. You and boy, I mean, there was 3 or 4 of you that kind of got together. Marlon Jones is one of them. I think Blaney was in there as well.
Yep.
It was one of the biggest wrecks I think anybody had seen in Knoxville history at that point. It's still right up there. What do you recall about that incident?
Blaney is the quickest qualifier of them all. Oh, in turn number 1, they're in the fence. There's a multi-car incident. In turn number 1, this race will be stopped immediately.
We've got a car outside the track, Steve. One went right through the fence. It looks like Marlon Jones in the number 9. That race car spilled upside down as Danny Thoman's 2V. He is still in that automobile. Now you hear the applause from this giant crowd. That means that Marlon Jones is out of his race car. John Sernett is out of the car. Dave Blaney is apparently all right, but right now the concern is directed at Danny Thoman in that automobile. There's one of the emergency workers trying to get him unhooked. Let's hope he's all right. These roll cages are very stout, but they're...
Yeah, so back in that day, in that era, they'd invert the entire heat race, you know, by time. And I had fortunately qualified, drew early and qualified well, started 4th row outside, and I assumed the first couple rows would roll to the bottom or the middle, and I was just gonna, I'd have an open track around the top. So I moved out by the fence, and I remember the last thing I remember, I guess, was getting hit in the left rear right at the approach of the turn. And
I don't have to tell you that it all happened right here in turn number 1.
An incredible, almost like a train wreck, as these cars literally disintegrate into that fence outside turn number 1. Unbelievable that these drivers were apparently uninjured as we watch this wreckage begin to be strewn all over the racetrack here at Knoxville. Okay, let's take another look as they come down the front straightaway toward the green flag. All right, watch the white number 2. That's Marlon Jones in the number 9 cutting in front of him. Then Jones slides up against the 14S of John Sernett, which causes him to flip. Danny Thoman in the 2V rolls. Marlon Jones goes through the fence. Dave Blaney in the 48 car goes through the wreckage, picking up shrapnel. His car is badly damaged, but does not roll. The only one of the 4 not to...
And then she went airborne, and so I think I went to sleep just for a little bit, but anyway, it was spectacular to watch.
It made the "and they walked away" video with Steve Evans and those kind of guys, and I remember the term was, it's almost like a train wreck. It was like the way there was wings coming off and people through the fence, and whew, man, that was tough.
I got on top of the fence, and one of the wooden posts put a hole through my fuel tank and tore it off the car, so I had fuel in the air, and it was a mess.
I don't want to bring that up because it's not the coolest thing you ever did, but I just want to say it's memorable, even to this day. What year was that?
That would have been 88 or 89, yeah.
Wow, over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Well, I'm glad that you're here. That's the most important. Hey, Tony, come here a second. I want to introduce you to someone. You'll know this guy anyway. I mean, you're not gonna. It's not as if you're not gonna know him. So, I'm looking back. You know, Marlon Jones, John Sernett. You know, people like that, Tony. I'm finding the survivors of that wreck in turn 1, and John was just explaining what happened. You would remember that too, man.
I remember, yeah. I can still see it happening.
So can John.
Yeah.
I can't.
Although most
so
of
can
it.
Most of it.
What do you remember about it?
I remember thinking to myself, they're all going to hit the camera stand. Remember the big camera television?
Oh, wow.
There was a scaffold way up in the air there, and I kept remembering in my mind, they're going to hit that camera scaffold, and it's going to come down, you know. But you didn't. You all fell short of it, but...
Well, I got up on top of the fence, and that's what ripped my fuel tank off, was the boards from the fence.
Yeah.
So, fortunately, the fence was high enough to keep me off Highway 14, but it was close to getting
So
me.
it was you, Dave Blaney, and Marlon Jones.
Yeah, and then Danny Thoman
Danny
was
Thoman,
in on
yeah,
it
that's
too.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and right at the end of my shunt there, when I was turning over, Blaney came and got into my belly pan, you know, pushed the belly pan up. So
I feel bad for
it
him
was
because when he said
something.
his brother or his sister, your brother's a bit of a, you know what, a wuss. He said like, oh, my brother's John Sernett. I know that name.
But does not roll, the only one of the 4 not to get upside down. That is John Sernett being led to the ambulance. He looks as if he's all right, but they will check all of these drivers to make sure that there isn't any hidden injuries. But Sernett at this point appears to be all right. Not so with his race car, which is a total wreck. Back on its wheels, they'll clear it away as they will the other.
I'm sorry that I know it from that wreck
That
though.
was kind of about the beginning of the end of the wood fence. You know, wasn't long after that, John Hall went through the fence in turn 2.
Yeah.
Like maybe the next year or something like that. And then they took the wood. Remember, it was all wood. And then they put the
Yep.
hub rail up. So it wasn't long after that.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that innovation. We appreciate you, John. It's good to see you, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.